There's 17 billion English pounds allocated on the Saudi Pro League from the first summer when there was this incredible influx of over 90 foreign stars through to 2030. That the spending's not going to stop in Saudi Arabia. We should be in for another exciting summer. Two of the big names that Saudi will chase after, Kevin De Bruyne and Mo Salah. There's a very real feeling in Saudi Arabia that more clubs will be privatized and taken under PIF control.
What's going on? I'm Mutah Bill, and welcome to the All Roads Lead to Saudi podcast show.
I'm Shamas Khan, and today we have a very special guest. He's one of the biggest sports journalists in the UK. He's the talkSport correspondent for the Roshn Saudi League, and we're very happy to have him with us today.
And by the way, shout out to our sponsors, By the Way Coffee.
Welcome, guys. Today we've got a very big sports broadcaster from the UK, not far from my hometown of Nottingham, from Leicester, I believe. And a talkSport Saudi football correspondent and a massive following on Twitter as well. We've got Ben Jacobs. How you doing, mate?
Well, I was better until you said you were from Nottingham.
We're rivals,
huh? Welcome to the show,
Not sure
man.
I should be on here now. Are you a Forest fan?
I'm a Liverpool fan, but I do like Forest, hometown.
All right, I forgive you. If they're only a second team, we can continue.
Very good, very good. So what we'll do, Ben, we'll just jump straight into it. I know it's a busy time of the year, especially with the window closing and whatnot. So the main reason we wanted to talk to you was about an article you wrote in Caught Offside about the Saudi League spending approximately up to 10 billion riyals in the summer window, so £2 billion. And that's basically followed on from a rule change. So could you just talk to us a bit about that and what you expect to happen?
Yeah, of course. So there's 17 billion English pounds allocated on the Saudi Pro League from the first summer when there was this incredible influx of over 90 foreign stars through to 2030. And what's interesting is that it's not just a flexible pot of cash, it's seasonal. And as a result, there's a lot of money, but if you spend it in any given season as a club, then you can't necessarily ask for more unless there's extenuating circumstances for a big name star. Yeah. And this is why we've seen a quiet January in Saudi, because a lot of the clubs spent their seasonal budget over the course of that summer. So flash forwards, the budget allocated across the teams for the forthcoming season, so summer and January, is 2 billion English pounds. And it'll be interesting to see whether the clubs withhold a little bit or change their approach, or again go big in summer and quiet in January. Now, that number's not just for transfers, it's also for wages and agent fees. So it's maybe not as high as people construe. And if you look at the last summer, there was about 750 million pounds spent. And then if you then add agent fees and wages, you can at least double that. And you can presume that so far across this season, the Saudi Pro League clubs collectively, with all costs considered, have probably spent somewhere in the region of 1.5 to 2 billion. So it's an equivalent number heading into next season, of which I would imagine half or certainly over a third will be spent on fees and the rest on all of these other costs as well, which means that the spending's not going to stop in Saudi Arabia. We should be in for another exciting summer.
Wow, bro, this is crazy because, as an American, we grew up believing basketball and football. Our football, of course, which is different than you guys, soccer. I would say now it's real football, but we call it soccer. So we never even expected that there was a sport that spent this amount of money. Now that I moved outside of America and I'm living in Saudi Arabia, I realized that soccer is the biggest sport. That's football is the biggest sport by far in the world. So if you don't mind explaining, because a lot of our, viewers are from the USA and soccer is new for us. So when they have this 1.2 billion or 2 billion euros being spent, or pounds, being spent, what is it being spent on exactly? We just want some clarification for myself, really.
Mostly my wages. That's where it all goes to. No, unfortunately not. So a basic transfer, for those that are less familiar, will entail a variety of costs. There's the fee, and the fee can be split into two parts. The actual guaranteed fee, which is the thing you get come what may, and anything relating to bonuses, which can be based upon success or performances, either for the individual or for their team. And sometimes you find it's a big fee, but the add-ons, as we call them, or the bonuses, are less easy to get. So you might think that the number is massive, but maybe it's contingent upon the Saudi team going on to win the league. And if they don't, then maybe the selling club gets a whole lot less. And if they're all signing stars, then a lot of these bonuses might not be paid. Then you've got the wages, you've got bonuses on top of the actual base wage. And in addition to that, you might have a sign-on fee. And then the agent or agents or intermediaries, it varies, that facilitate the deal can also and do also take a cut. So when you add all of that up, these type of elements contribute to the overall cost.
Big money, bro. So we'll just quickly blast through the questions, because I know you've only got like 20, 30 minutes. So in terms of the spend, will it be spread evenly across the league? Will it be the 4 teams that are backed by PIF in terms of Ittihad, Ahli, Nasser, Hilal? Do you expect it to go to Ittifaq, for example, where Steven Gerrard is? Like, what do you expect?
Well, I think we're going to be in for a few surprises. So the first thing is the money will be allocated based upon the need and also the star names available. So 2 of the big names that Saudi will chase after, Kevin De Bruyne and Mo Salah. If they succeed, then naturally the spend will be weighted towards those clubs.
You know Mo Salah.
And I think
I know my Egyptian. He played for...
Yeah, there you go.
He played for Liverpool?
That's our team, bro.
Liverpool.
Yeah,
I know a little something.
There we go. Some good soccer or football knowledge there then. So naturally, those kind of names will require big fees, big wages, and it's likely that some preference will be given towards whoever the Saudi champions are or the teams that qualify for the Asian Champions League. And naturally, the PIF-controlled clubs in Jeddah and Riyadh, the bigger ones, are going to be able to spend more and will be given some preference because they're deemed to be the more likely to succeed.
Do you
and
think
this is why, for example, just to go on a slight tangent, Al Ittihad, the current Saudi champions, were given preference to try for Mo Salah in the summer transfer window. Liverpool rejected a verbal offer of £150 million all in, including the add-ons, and now it will flip. And of course, Al Ittihad would still like Mo Salah, but Al Hilal are probably front of queue because they're on course to win the Saudi Pro League. So the clubs change. And believe it or not, the clubs are often in this very unique model because it's centralized and the Ministry of Sport are involved. The clubs often end up being decided last. So N'Golo Kante thought he was going to Al Nassr, but because of the Club World Cup, ended up going to Al Ittihad. So it makes it a bit more unpredictable. But the surprise away from the bigger clubs, who probably will get a slightly larger portion of the pie, financially speaking, is that Al Ittifaq are very ambitious. Al Shabab have still got some money left because they didn't spend that much over the summer. So they may be able to bleed that budget into next season. And then there's a very real feeling in Saudi Arabia that more clubs will be privatized and taken under PIF control. So we might not just have 4 PIF clubs, we might have 6. And eventually we might even have 14 because that's the target number for privatization. And privatization basically means handing over control either to PIF or another private investor. Probably Saudi, but maybe in a minority sense, European investment as well. And all that might change too. And then the other surprise is we have an independent club away from all of this centralization called Al Qadsiya. And they're currently flying high and looking for promotion into the Saudi Pro League. And they're owned by Aramco. So instead of it all being neat and amicable and central and for the good of Saudi, we're suddenly going to get a new player. And Aramco are going to come along and say, yeah, we want to promote the project, we want to promote the league, we want to promote tourism, we want to promote the World Cup. But they're also going to say, hey, PIF, you can't just stroll to league titles. We're going to spend our own money. And that's different to the ministry pot. So if, as expected, Al Qadsiya get promoted, then come the summer, I think they're going to make some very high-profile signings using their own money.
Who's your
Aramco got money. Who's my team?
Yeah.
I don't know, man, because, you know...
You better pick Hilal, you in Riyadh. You better pick Hilal and
Hilal and Nasser. This is the rivalry. It's almost like Bloods and Crips in America. But
you don't have a preference?
Nah, I'm just getting into football more and more, so I'm enjoying the game.
Yeah.
But I don't have a team yet.
Smart approach.
I gotta wait back and see.
Let's pick you a team.
Let's pick a team.
Who's your American football team?
My American football team.
From New Jersey.
I'm from New Jersey, but I used to like the Washington Redskins. I haven't watched football in a long time. Shout out, I believe Kansas City they going to the championship. A friend of mine's nephew is played for that team for Kansas City. But maybe Philadelphia Eagles.
Who's the equivalent?
Philadelphia Eagles, a big team.
Well, I mean, the Eagles are a weird one because they did obviously win a Super Bowl recently, but they're not that loved.
Okay,
as
what about
fan base.
what about the 49ers?
I'm just hearing too many teams though, to give you a team.
You like a lot of football teams.
Commanders, I've heard 49ers, I've heard New Jersey, I've heard Philadelphia.
So that lets you know that same understanding of my football. The way I understand your football, soccer is even worse.
If you had to pick one,
if we took Washington Commanders, then I don't think they've won an NFL championship since the early 90s. And
True.
you got Josh Harris as the owner, who's obviously also involved in football at Crystal Palace, at least for now, who are kind of mid-table within the Premier League. Then I would say your team has to be Al Hilal, who are a PIF-controlled club and the biggest team in Asia, because all the teams you've spoken to me about within American football haven't won anything. So maybe it's time that you win something.
That's let you know I haven't watched.
They got some amazing.
That lets you know I haven't watched an American football game in a few years, actually. But we could talk
you know
about
what?
basketball.
If you want a like for like with the Commanders, then your other club. So if you just want to win something because you're sick and tired of not winning anything,
I just
then you go Al Hilal. But if you want a like for like, then you go Al Ahly, because Al Ahly are a big club with big potential. They got Riyad Mahrez, they're PIF controlled, but they actually were only just back in the Saudi Pro League, having been relegated. So they're building something from scratch and looking to return to their glory days. So Al Ahly are your Washington Commanders.
We'll see. I'm actually waiting for a good friend of mine, Kareem Benzema. I want to see what team he go to, and I will support him. Because my very first soccer match that I ever been to was a Real Madrid game with Kareem Benzema as his guest, and that's when the love. And I think they made about 5 goals, something outrageous, and I was like, my love started to grow. So I got to be loyal to my friend.
Any insight on what's happening with Benzema, Ben? Any insight with what's happening with Benzema, Ben? Do you know, is he likely to stay in the league? Is he likely to stay within, not even Etihad, is he likely to move teams, or is he going to stay there? What do you think will happen?
Yeah, I think so, because with Benzema, there's obviously the player perspective, and he was late back to a mid-season training camp, and it was a little bit tense, but it's all changed at Al Ittihad. They've not had the best of seasons. They were not able to, unfortunately, progress beyond the first game that they won in the Club World Cup. And in addition to that, they sort of lingering in mid-table at the moment, and it's going to be very important in the second half of the season that they are able to qualify for the Asian Champions League. They're not going to be able to defend their title, that's for sure. So this means that it's a bit of a lull second half of the season for Benzema and Kante, and deal makers, not just within the club, but the wider ministry, have been adamant that they need to keep hold of Benzema. It's not a good look from an optics point of view to let him leave, but they still want to try and build Al Ittihad around Benzema. So it's a blank slate in the summer. And of course, the player perspective is going to be important, and he may decide that he wants another challenge, but the club are not thinking that way at the moment. They want to give Benzema as much control as possible over the project to get the recruitment right over the summer, and then help Al Ittihad challenge for another title. Because as I say, unfortunately this season, it's not going to be possible. It's a great club. It's a fantastic fan base. I think that the fans showed exactly what Saudi football culture is all about at the Club World Cup. And that's a little teaser ahead of the World Cup. So it's a massive club, and it's got brilliant support, and it's got a great stadium, and it's got star names. It's just unfortunate that they're 7th in the table on, I think, 28 points, and Al Hilal at the moment are on 53. So they're not going to be able to defend their title, but it'll be all change again over the summer. And if Benzema can play a part in that recruitment and stay at the club, they'll still have a spine, they'll still have stars, and then they'll be in a position where maybe they can challenge again next season. It's
an amazing fan base. I used to live in Jeddah. I was in Jeddah for 4 years, and you see black and yellow scars everywhere. Like it's a serious fan base. So yeah, hopefully they'll get back to where they were. So what I wanted to do, Ben, just to run through a few player names, and just to ask you, is there any chance they'll come to the league this summer? You know, what's the plans for those guys? And then there's a few speculative ones too. So Thiago Alcantara, he's currently at Liverpool. Do you know, is there anything happening with him? Is he likely to move on?
Yeah, the expectation is he'll leave Liverpool at the end of the season, and they're is a desire from some Saudi clubs. There'll be other suitors as well to try and get him to sign a pre-contract. So this is one to watch between the windows. And Stephen Gerrard's Al Ittifaq in particular, really, really keen.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Ittifaq, and actually even Al Qadsiya and Dammam, is that so many of them are Liverpool fans. And I won't name names, obviously, but there's sort of in-joke in Dammam that everyone in Dammam around football is a Liverpool fan. So Henderson ended up going there, unfortunately left. Gerrard is there too.
Well done.
Robbie Fowler was originally the manager of Al Qadsiya before he was quite harshly sacked because I don't think they'd lost a league game when he departed. But anyway, Alcantara, an option for Ittifaq. Slaven Bilic's Al Fatah, which is not too far away from Dammam, are also interested. And I think Al Ali will come into the conversation for Alcantara as well. So it will all depend on whether the player's prepared to agree a pre-contract and also if he fancies a move to Saudi. But Saudi clubs are working on this one already ahead of the summer.
Okay, interesting. What about some of the... I mean, I don't know how possible this is, but Mbappe, like he was previously linked with Hilal. Is there any chance, you know, because he is likely to move on from everything I've seen?
I know Mbappe.
You know Mbappe, there you go.
Yeah, Kylian Mbappe won't be going to Saudi Arabia. I think it will be between renewing at PSG or moving to Real Madrid. The player's adamant. He said it on record at the time we're recording this anyway, that he hasn't yet made up his mind. I know there's some links with Liverpool and the Premier League, but I think they're less concrete, and that is less likely, unfortunately, for Liverpool fans and Premier League ones. The move for Mbappe during a difficult pre-season with PSG, where he was excluded from a tour of Asia, and at that point, I think Al Hilal basically looked at the situation and saw opportunism, and they thought, why not? Mbappe had a difficult summer. He was quite, I think, acrimonious with the club because they felt like he had this secret pre-agreement with Real Madrid and they were going to lose money and he was going to leave on a free in summer 2024. And at that point, it needed resolving and there was a lot of politics and there was a lot of games. Now things have calmed down because Mbappe's agreed that even if he leaves on a free transfer, he'll forego various bonuses, which allow PSG to make money even if he does depart to Real Madrid or elsewhere on a free transfer. And that's why the situation's calmed. But when it was still tense, Saudi dealmakers saw a window of opportunity and they thought, why not? We'll try and get Mbappe in summer 2023 and we'll say to Mbappe, just do a year in Saudi at Al Hilal, biggest club in Asia. And then after that, if you want to still go to Real, you can go to Real. And it was smart. And it was smart because it was also a move of optics. It was a move of PR. And I think that's shown by the price because the offer on the table was around 300 million euros and PSG would have accepted 150 million euros. So why are you offering 300 million euros? Probably the answer is that it's a world record fee and it has glitz and glamour and show about it. So my feeling at the time was that, yes, the Saudis tried their luck, but they knew from the start that Mbappe wouldn't entertain it. So they went big. Because that gets headlines, that gets buzz, that shows ambition, that helps build a narrative about the Saudi Pro League meaning business and almost having unlimited funds and breaking world records. But I don't think anyone in Saudi thought that it was ever going to happen and it was dismissed relatively quickly by Mbappe.
What about, I mean, just to get your view on this, because if you look at the European leagues now, Spanish league not the strongest, Italian league good but not the strongest, German league not the strongest. So what's to stop the Saudi League within 2 to 3 years really competing with the Premier League? I know it sounds a bit fanciful, but if you've got consistent investment and improvement in infrastructure, a rabid fan base, which you definitely have for the at least the top 4 or 5 teams in Saudi, why would Mbappe not join in 2-3 years?
Well, I think in 2-3 years, it might be a different story. You're absolutely right. But top players want to join top clubs and play at peak level. They don't all want to join projects. So there's 2 separate points here. One is the Saudi project, and we need to pay respect to that. And we also need to not prejudge it because it's so formative. No one I speak to in Saudi Arabia believes they should be a top 5 league now, but they're being judged on it. And at times falsely and unfairly derided. And it's nonsense to say that the project's going to collapse after one window. It's nonsense to say that an early project wouldn't have teething problems Because of course it would. It's brand new. And the infrastructure is always going to take time to catch up with the ambition. So judging the Saudi project now is very unfair, simply because if they stick to their strategy, it won't become a top 5 or a top 1 league in the world until probably 6, 7, 8 years time. And then every window will add star power. Every window will add PR. Every window will add global audience. Every window will add commercial partners.
Yeah.
And then eventually the infrastructure in the build up to the 2034 World Cup will match the ambition. But because people only look at the ambition, they say, well, you signed a star player like Benzema now, but he's a bit older and he might leave. You signed Henderson and he left. So everyone looks at that as 1 step forwards, 2 steps back. But those running the project are not viewing it in those terms. They're saying, our aim is to get to 2030 because that's when the vision is. And the vision's all about bringing sport to Saudi, improving lifestyle, tying in sport with tourism, creating jobs, and giving a very young population what they love, which is football. It's the number 1 sport in Saudi Arabia for men and women, by the way, and at academy level and youth level, all whilst benefiting the Saudi national team ahead of the 2034 World Cup. Yeah. So that's the plan. And if you think that's going to happen overnight, or if you criticize it because it hasn't happened overnight, it's short-sighted from a project perspective.
Yeah.
So that's one point.
Makes sense.
And in answer to your question, why wouldn't that be of appeal to somebody? The answer is because maybe they're not 18 to 21 and they want something for the now, and they want to spend their whole career, because they're already established, playing at the highest possible level, as opposed to getting paid the most amount of money only, which is one consideration, but not the be all and the end all. So I think if you're like a 16 to 21-year-old now, you're probably thinking, wow, by the time I hit my peak, the Saudi Pro League might hit its peak, and then great, it could be a very viable league to join. If you're an older player, or if you are more financially orientated, maybe you do move now. But if you're Mbappe, if you're Haaland, if you're Bellingham, it's no disrespect to the Saudi project. It's just the reality that these players don't want to drop down a level even for a second.
Yeah.
They want to stay at their peak now, and they're lucky enough because they're in such a unique and small category of stars that they're already well compensated. So Mbappe doesn't need an extra million a week from Saudi. He's getting his 6, 7, 800,000 or whatever it will be at Real Madrid or at PSG. He's getting that anyway, and he's getting all the commercial sponsorship and all of the other trimmings. And if he wants to go to Saudi a bit later in his career, he still can do. So I think we need to separate the project, which we need to be patient with the now. And just because the now puts off an elite level player, it doesn't mean that one day they won't be tempted by the project.
Just a few more questions. So just leading on from what you just said about players and I guess joining within, in their peak, which kind of players, or which players specifically do you think would consider joining in the summer then? Who can our Saudi audience be excited about potentially joining?
Yeah, I think Salah's a possibility. We've discussed him already. It will all depend on the new Liverpool manager.
Salah. I was hoping he'd say a name I know, so I'm happy.
Who else?
Salah, though, could easily join still. I think Al Hilal will be one of the lead contenders. It just depends if he wants to do another year at Liverpool. And if so, we need to watch that one in 2025. Kevin De Bruyne is tough because Pep Guardiola would like him to stay and he's very settled. But again, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. He's a top target. So what the deal makers do every summer, as they did last summer, is they draw up an initial list of about 20 names. And they know they're not going to get all 20, but they put 20 odd names on a list and they go for them, and they don't take no for an answer. So the answer may be no, but that doesn't mean that the Saudi deal makers won't have tried 3, 4, 5 times. They'll insist as much as they possibly can rather than making a bid, getting a no and giving up. So Victor Osimhen's a good example. They made 3 bids for Osimhen, and by the 3rd bid, he was eventually tempted. Jordan Henderson said no to Al Ittifaq, but within 6 hours, they made another bid. And then he said yes. Sadio Mane said no eventually, and then they came back and they got him. Bobby Firmino said no eventually. They managed to get him to Al Ahly. So there's a pattern here of the Saudis getting rejected and then saying, we don't think no means no to begin with, and then trying again and again, and then eventually they get the true picture. So other names, Son at Spurs is on the list for 2025. again, difficult, but he could be one to watch for sure.
So Riyadh club, Jeddah club, or you're not sure?
There's no real club yet because first of all, it will depend upon the player. And then if they think it's viable, they'll find out from the clubs whether or not that's a move that can be pulled off. I think there's a fair chance Al Ahly will be interested in Son and that it will be one of the PIF related clubs. So keep an eye on that. I think that Joe Gomez is a target, but is going to be difficult to prize away from Liverpool. I think that if Onana at Everton stays, then there'll be Saudi clubs interested in him. I think Rafa Varane and Casemiro are two to watch for the summer, particularly Varane. Varane may agree a reduced terms deal at Manchester United to stay for a bit longer, but the Saudis feel that that one's viable. And both Al Ittihad and Al Nassr are two clubs to watch there. And I still think, even though it's not come off this window, that Miguel Almiron will be another topic of conversation for Al Shabab in the summer. There was a verbal agreement between Newcastle and Al Shabab, but Almiron didn't want the move. So Al Shabab never followed up that verbal agreement with a formal offer. But maybe in the summer things will change. And we know that Newcastle are looking to sell players. I think there'll be some Saudi interest in Callum Wilson as well. So I expect another ambitious summer. And I think several players from the Premier League might be on the move to Saudi Arabia in the next window.
Exciting stuff. Ben, can I ask you, how long do you have? Do you have a couple? Because I had two more questions.
Got about 5 minutes.
All right, good. So we have a couple more topics to quickly go over. One of them was the Saudi national team. So we saw what they did the last World Cup, beat Argentina. We all got a day off work. Amazing. So I wanted to get your view on, one, hosting the World Cup. How do you think that will go? Because by consensus, Qatar was the best World Cup ever. Did you go?
Yeah, no, I didn't go, but I heard about it.
Amazing World Cup. So how do you think that's going to go? And two, what does the Saudi national team have to do from now, so for the next 10 years they can prepare and really make a strong challenge and a strong run at the World Cup?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. As you say, the Qatar World Cup was fantastic from a football perspective, but also it was probably the most technologically advanced World Cup we've seen. And now when it comes to Saudi Arabia, it will be an expanded World Cup. So there's going to be a lot more geography that can be included compared to Qatar, which was basically just like a Doha World Cup. And the reason for that is because it's a solo bid. Yeah. So it's quite interesting how we're going to be jumping from America, Canada, Mexico, expanded World Cup. You need 3 countries to a Saudi-specific World Cup. And the fact it's only Saudi, despite rumours of co-bid with Egypt, for example, or even Greece, I heard at one point. But by only being Saudi, they're going to be able to go well beyond just Riyadh and Jeddah. So Dammam is obviously going to be one location. I would imagine places like Neom will be included too. So we're going to see a lot of Saudi. So it's going to be a World Cup that showcases tourism. And I think the brief, as simple and as glib as it sounds, will just be better than Qatar. I know there'll be learnings from America, Canada, Mexico to Saudi, but I think the Saudis will want to look at Qatar and what they did in the build-up, the pre-legacy as it's known, to bring through young talent, to build infrastructure, to the football side, to the legacy. And they want to make sure that everything about the World Cup, from its link with the league, to its link with tourism, to a strong Saudi national team, everything surpasses Qatar. Go further than Qatar did, bring through young players, raise the women's game as well. So there's a knock-on effect, the Men's World Cup tying into women's football, make it technologically advanced, make it digitally advanced, have people say that it's the best World Cup ever on and off the field, which is obviously very ambitious. And we're still in the formative stages. And then as far as the Saudi national team is concerned, what's interesting, of course, is just that it's so far away that a lot of the players currently part of the Saudi national team may not be a part of the World Cup. So you have to start kind of planning ahead for the future. Of course, the Saudi national team wants success now, but maybe we'll see an onus on younger players getting opportunities within the Saudi Pro League and within the Saudi national team to ultimately make sure that the players that actually stand a chance of being at their peak for the 2034 World Cup are playing regularly. Because if I look at the sort of current Saudi squad, even mid-20s players are not going to be there come the 2034 World Cup. So one, you need a new goalkeeper because you've got like Mohamed Al Rubai, you've got Ragid Al Najjar, you've got Ahmed Al Kassar. None of them are going to be there. You look at the defenders, there's not too many that are likely to be a part of it. I suppose you could argue someone like Rayhan Hamoudou because he's only 21 at Al Ahly, but someone like Hassam Kadesh, for example, or players that have won more caps like Ali Al Bulahi or Syed Abdul Hamid.
I love this guy. This guy's funny.
And even
all the
he's
names.
only 24. He's not going to be there.
Yeah. But
So I can't think of that many players. I mean, Faisal Al Ghamdi might be there, but again, he's in his early 20s. So that's when you start saying, what about a player like Talal Haji, who's only 16 years of age, who's broken into the Saudi national team? Why is he broken in at 16? Because he's someone they obviously think can be important come the World Cup. And then you look at other recent call-ups, and we're seeing this wave now. You've got Hamed Al Shankiti, who's at Al Shabab. He's only 18 years of age. He's a goalkeeper. He's been called up recently. I don't think he's won a cap yet, but he's got his call-up. Why? Again, because he's a teenager that might form part of the World Cup squad in 2034. So we're starting to see this planning already where younger players are getting opportunities. And I think in the next 10 years, every year you'll see a younger and younger and younger average age squad. So then come the World Cup, these 16, 17, 18-year-olds to early 20s will start to hit their peak, and it will allow for a smooth transition ahead of the World Cup in 2034.
how important do you think, so they've got Yaya Toure and Mancini, you probably don't know what these names mean, right? But these are two elite kind of characters in football. Like, what impact do you think they can have on the Saudi national team?
Yeah, a big impact. But again, Roberto Mancini is 59. So hopefully the plan is that he stays in Saudi Arabia for 10 odd years.
He's a coach?
And then manages the World Cup.
Yeah.
But he's 59. So you never know. Things can change. You got Mourinho, for example, as a free agent. It wouldn't surprise me if Mourinho goes to another club and then in 4, 5, 6 years considers international management. So the plan is not to replace Mancini. He's clearly been hired with a view to the World Cup. He clearly left Italy with a view to the World Cup. So let's hope he succeeds and stays for the long haul. And it's disrespectful to start saying maybe they're looking at another manager. But 10 years is a long time for any manager. So you can never say because of age, because of personal preference, because of results. You can never say for sure any manager, even the most successful in the world, even Pep Guardiola at Man City, or even Klopp, only stayed 9 years at Liverpool. You can never say a manager's going to definitely stay for 10 years.
10 years.
So it's very hard to predict what Mancini will do as far as the World Cup is concerned. But what we can say is in the short and medium term, he will build professionalism. He'll obviously coach at a level that improves these Saudi players. And his experience is going to be vital in building the foundations ahead of the 2034 World Cup. And then let's hope that he signs a new contract and then another new contract and then ends up being the manager on the touchline in 2034.
Yeah. Last question. I wasn't going to ask it, but you mentioned Jose Mourinho. Is he going to come to the Saudi League?
I think it's a possibility. I mean, Mourinho has said openly and on record he'll manage in Saudi one day. So the short answer is yes. But is it going to be in the next weeks or months? We have to wait and see. I think that Mourinho won't be short of offers in Europe, in Saudi, and also internationally. And I think that he might wait for like a merry-go-round of movement. We know Xavi's going at the end of the season now at Barcelona. We know that Klopp's leaving Liverpool. I don't think he'll be a contender for that job. But if you're Mourinho, you're not going to rush into Al Shabab, which was rumoured, even though there was never a full agreement or anything advanced. But you're not going to rush because how many vacancies are going to materialise over the summer? Who knows if Pochettino will last at Chelsea and then suddenly Mourinho may consider a return there. Who knows if Southgate will stay on at England after the Euros. It's felt like Julian Nagelsmann will leave Germany for a club role. Maybe that's where Klopp goes, but maybe someone thinks Mourinho's right for that. So he's not going to rush. But I think eventually, it might not be his next job, but eventually I think Jose Mourinho will end up in Saudi. We know that in the summer, Al Hilal tried and Mourinho strongly considered it, but decided to stay at Roma. And then his departure from Roma was a bit unexpected. I think there were periods where Mourinho felt like he might get a new deal at Roma. He was very settled in that city. So I think Mourinho will take personal time. I think he'll end up in Saudi, but it remains to be seen if it will be his next move or if it will be a move further down the line.
Yeah. Amazing.
Wow.
I think we can conclude there.
Hey, I think I can, after this interview, I'm an officially football fan. It's official.
So I think we summarize it by saying Mutah is a blue. He's a Hilal fan.
I'm a Hilal now.
They're going to spend £2 billion in the summer.
Wow.
Mourinho's coming. And maybe De Bruyne and Salah, or the Salah have mixed feelings.
You definitely educated me.
I want you to listen back and I want you to take all of those names that I've butchered from the local Saudi team and I want you to memorize them and then I want you to recount them one by one to show off kind of dinner table knowledge of Saudi football. But don't go with my pronunciations because there'll be locals listening that are laughing their heads off because every single anglicised pronunciation of the Saudi player I've probably got wrong.
No, man.
I think you did good. No, I think you did great.
They'll appreciate the effort, I'm sure.
They appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Ben. Honestly, it's a pleasure talking to you and hopefully we'll do this again.
Thanks for your time. And
yeah,
hopefully,
look forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
And we look forward to seeing you when you come to Saudi.
I'm looking forward to it. All the best.
You got to come to the restaurant.
You got to come to my restaurant. I have a American-style barbecue restaurant. Smoky beers.
Oh, nice.
Smoked brisket, smoked barbecue.
Oh, I love that. You know what? Because I used to live in New York and I used to go to Red Hook.
Okay.
And they had amazing barbecue in Red Hook. So I'm holding you to that.
Are you coming anytime soon?
I don't know. To be honest, I was going to come for the Messi-Ronaldo game, but it was just so tight with the window because it falls on deadline day. So I'm probably going to come for like the last couple of weeks of the season. I'm probably going to come in like April or May. So I'll keep you guys posted.
Please do.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Have a good weekend,
no
man. Good transfer window.
Yeah, thanks, guys. A pleasure. Keep up the good work. Always happy to come on. We'll speak soon.
Cheers, man.
Take care. Peace.
Cheers. All the best. Bye.
Man, that was amazing. Woo!
But I know for you, this ain't your thing.
I know, but I need to make it my thing because this is